So it's a welcome back to everybody from spring break, albeit probably no different than anything else for most of us, but nevertheless, it's a pleasure to welcome Assistant Professor Zhang from the School of Biology and Ecology. He is a plant physiologist interested in plant response to climate change and environmental stresses. He has two PhDs, one from Miami, one from the Chinese Academy of Sciences. He's had postdocs at Harvard, and he is interested in becoming associated with the Climate Change Institute for obvious reasons. And I think having spoken to him for a while on Zoom a few days ago, I think he would make a great addition, because obviously it'd be very nice to learn more about biology and plants and integrate it with what we have. So John, I'll turn it over to you, and once you're finished, we'll see if we'll answer some questions if there are some, and we look forward to having you involved with us.
Sounds great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Paul, for the nice introduction. And it's really my pleasure today to present some aspects or projects from my research projects. And I know CCI for a while, and also actually know many of you here. And I think I look forward to interact with you more in the near future. And in today's presentation, I will try to include more projects or more aspects of my research. And for some of the projects may not go to very deep, but if you are interested in certain aspects or in certain projects, I look forward to interacting with you afterwards. Okay, I will start to share my screen. And present. Can everyone see the screen fine? Okay, great. Okay, good. Yeah, so today I'm going to talk about briefly a few case studies regarding how natural and agricultural systems, they are responding to climate change and also climate extremes. We will talk about the savanna system. There's a savanna system in southwest China, the subtropical forest, and also the white blueberry system here in Maine. And at the end, I'm going to introduce some new ideas I'm now working at, and those are at cellular level studies, but also related to plant response to climate change and extremes. So when we are talking about global climate change or climate change in general, the major thing we're thinking about is the temperature change. So the temperature has been changed a lot during the past century, and also it depends on the regions. It also means when we are talking about plant or ecosystem response to climate change, it also depends on the region and also depends on the ecosystem. They may have different responses. And based on this map, we can see that the northern region actually, the temperature increased more compared to the middle latitude. And also the Amazon region and the Europe, they kind of increased more compared to the rest of the region. And it's not only that, it's also the extremes, those climate, or we can also call it climate variability, also increased during the past century. It means to the natural or agricultural systems, there are more risks to manage. There are more disasters. So, and also somebody suggests actually those climate extremes, those extreme events, they have larger or bigger impacts to the ecosystem or plants compared to the changes in averages. And we know that the environment is always changing, and also the plants themselves, they are dynamic biological systems. They are also changing during the seasons, right? So this is an example from the white blueberries, the beautiful semi-natural agriculture system. From like spring to summer to fall and to the winter time, the plants, they are changing in terms of physiology. They are responding to environmental changes. And also it's not only the seasonal changes, but it's also the diurnal changes. They're changing in minutes, in seconds. So it's a really dynamic system. And they are kind of interacting very frequently with the environment. So we are really interested in this kind of dynamic world, dynamic environmental change. How stable are those biological systems in plants or at an ecosystem level? Yeah, so I'm a plant physiologist, but I'm also really interested in different scale approaches. I also use like remote sensing and additive flux and satellite-based like remote sensing to try to understand how ecosystem is responding to those environmental changes. Yeah, and especially climate extremes, like because they kind of push the ecosystem to the limit, and how those ecosystems and the plants in the ecosystem will respond is a really interesting question. And we also want to understand the limit. Like, what is the brink the system will collapse, for example. So some background regarding this topic, and also from the perspective of plant physiology. So this is a paper published by a group from Australia, like in 2012, regarding plants and forest. And their idea is like all the plants and the forest, especially the angiosperms, they are on the brink of failure. So let's look at this figure. Like the y-axis is like kind of the minimum stress or the maximum stress or minimum water potential. More negative water potential means more stress or water stress to the plants. So this stress level, we can look at the angiosperms first, those blue dots. Those stress level they experienced during the seasons, they are kind of close to the collapse point. So this is like P50 is like the water potential cause kind of 50% of damage or conduit cavitation or hydraulic failure, we can call them. And we will explain a little bit more, but this is a kind of collapse point for the trees. So it means like if we push these plants or ecosystem or forest a little bit further, they may collapse. So their conclusions like those forests on the brink of collapse. And the gymnosperms, the conifers, they are better. So the stress they experienced is like kind of a little bit away from the damaging points. So I can explain a little bit more regarding this. This is just a slide, a copy from my plant physiology class showing the water transport system, kind of really basics thing. So anyway, the leaf is transpiring. So they are using this transpiration generated sucking force to transport water. So you can imagine that you are using a straw to suck a cup of water or Coke. So all the water in this water transport system or xylem conduit system, they are under tension because of this transpiration generated sucking force. And because of that, during the drought, when the soil is getting really dry, or the atmosphere is really dry, it means like the driving force for the water to release from the leaf is really high. The tension could be really high. So if the tension is really high, two failure modes could happen. You can also imagine that like when you are using a straw to drink water, if you suck really hard, sometimes the straw can collapse. And also the other failure mode is like, because those piping systems, the water transport system, they are leaky. They have micro pores on the wall. those air bubbles surrounding them, they can be poured. So this is the second failure mode, the poured into the system, and we call it cavitation. So in previous figure, we mentioned like the 50% water potential. It means like 50% of the xylem conduits, they are filled with air bubbles. So it means like the plant, they cannot transport water efficiently to the leaves, to the flowers, to the fruits. So they will die if like more than 50% of the conduits, they are cavitated. Simply means like the leaves cannot get enough water anymore, or the above ground tissue then will die from desiccation. So very interestingly, so that's the general background. But interestingly, like in 2013, when I was also at Harvard, my postdoc advisor, that the group, they published a paper to show that actually a lot of data published before that, before this like discovery is like a lot of data, they are actually there are a lot of artifacts. So I can explain the general ideas here. Like, for example, we want to understand the cavitation happening in the xylem vessels. We will cut a stem in the field and we bring back to the lab to measure. Right. For example, we study a tree and we cut a branch in the tree during the drought, and we bring back to the lab to do the measurements. But these can generate a lot of artifacts. So if you look at the second figure, like we will try to cut the branch underwater in the field to avoid like air bubbles getting into the xylem conduits. But even we cut the xylem conduits underwater, if the plant is not relaxed, it means like not hydrated. They cannot be hydrated during the drought, right? So this cutting under tension, we call it cutting under tension or under stress, they can introduce artificial cavitation to the stem sections. So it's like the second figure. So what we need to do is like, for example, we go to the field, we need to rehydrate the plant first, at least part of the tree, some of the branches. Like for example, we back the leaf, we relax the tension, and we supply water from the soil or from other branches, and then we can cut. And then we will not introduce artifacts. So it simply means like, all the data before this discovery, they are exposed to these kind of artifacts. And so that really make us think like, whether those data published, for example, the 2012 data in the Nature, like, are there artifacts? So the question is like, are the forests really on the brink, and also the trees are on the brink of hydraulic failure or damage or collapse? So we, after that, we did a lot of studies, and this is a new study we published last year. We are comparing like different methods used to generate these kind of we call it vulnerability curves. Actually, these curves is so x-axis is like the water stress level, and the y-axis you can see as like percentage of those xylem cavitation, like how many percent of those conduits they are cavitated, so they cannot transport water anymore. But anyway, what you can see is like, different methods we used before, they generate a lot of like noise. Different methods really do not agree with each other. And the purple one, I think is the most reliable methods. And the ones on the right is also a more reliable method. But all these other methods we used massively in the past, they could generate a lot of noise in those data. If you compare to the red and the purple with like the green and blue. They show a huge difference. And the purple one and the yellow one on the right, they are more kind of straightforward methods and more reliable methods. And I can show you why. So this is a method which is like on the right, the yellow ones or the orange ones, is a more like visualized methods. We can observe those like cavitation spreading in a leaf based on the cavitation events. The idea is like once a xylem vessel is cavitated, it will generate an optical signal. So we can use a microscope or use a scanner, just use a scanner to scan the leaf. For example, we can put a scanner in a greenhouse or in the field sometimes if we protect them. And then we can monitor during the drought and how the cavitation is happening and spreading in the leaf. And this method can also be applied to the stem. And this is just a grape leaf we did in the growth chamber. And the other method is also a visualization method. It's like using the micro CT. I know everybody knows micro CT. It's used for medical purpose, but we can also use that to study the trees or plants. Here you can see that we can generate kind of 3D map for them, and we can look at into using some software. We can analyze the data and the image and look into those details about the conduits, like which conduits are filled with water, so that means that they are functioning, or which conduits they are filled with air, so it's like cavitated. And we can generate a gradient, for example, like from different stress levels, and we can see that as the tissue is getting drier and drier, like more negative water potentials, we will see more cavitated conduits. So we can quantify, use these two, really visualization methods, because we believe maybe they also have some artifacts, but we believe like, seeing is believing, and we believe these two methods are most reliable methods. So we are using these two methods to study like different ecosystems. So I will give you some case studies we did. This is also a paper we just published last year regarding drought and a valley savanna system in southwest China. And this is a photo taken by my wife and showing the landscape of the savanna system. It's a beautiful photo, so they pick it as the cover image for the journal. And if we get into more details of the savanna system, you can see that you may have more impressions about the savanna systems for example, in Africa or in South America, but this is a system, a savanna system in southwest China. And we can see a lot of grasses on the ground, and here they already turned yellow. That means it's part of the beginning of the dry season. And the trees, there are a lot of evergreen trees and also some deciduous trees. They have a high diversity in terms of species. But you can see if you get into the system, it really look like those savanna systems in Africa. We don't have like big mammals here or big animals here, but during last year, actually the elephants, the elephants from the tropical region, they had a long trip, like from the tropical regions, the tropical rainforest, and they traveled here and to go further north to the temperate region, and then they go back. So we also see huge elephants, but it's not we didn't capture the photos for the elephants, but the villagers they saw the elephants. But anyway, this is a really interesting kind of savanna system, just like the savanna in Africa or South America. And naturally, we got a lot of like kind of drought events during the past past like decades. So this is a drought index as a SPI, you can call it, standardized precipitation and evaporation index. So more negatives means drought or water deficits, and positive values means you have a lot of water. Negative means lack of water. So there are two kind of drought events we studied. One is 2012. So you can see that this drought index approached about -2. So this is actually a very dry, indicate very dry. But you can also see drought is kind of frequent in this region. But the 2012 drought is like kind of really long in terms of temporal spanning. And we had another really large drought. We call it kind of historical drought because the SPI, the drought index value, reached almost -3. So, but it's not that the duration is not as long as the 2012 drought. So, but both of them are really bad drought, and we saw a lot of crop dieback or canopy dieback. So this is so the first data is based on the 2012 drought. We monitored these people in the station, monitored the dieback or we call it top kill or mortality. You can call it mortality, but we are not sure because the above ground are dead, but we don't know whether they will resprout and come back. So we call it top kill. But anyway, we saw a lot of dieback in the shrubs here. Like we monitored different life forms. We saw a lot of dieback or above ground mortality of the shrubs. And we can see a lot of species. So different bars indicate different species. Like could reach 70%. Like it means 70% of the individuals, they were dead. But trees, we see some diebacks, but not that much. Also didn't see a dieback in lianas. And later, in 2020, we did another study on these shrubs. And it also just published. But what we are saying is they can show a large dieback above ground, but maybe it's a good thing. So that's more physiology. Like it's a good thing for the plants because they are kind of sacrificing the above ground part. So to keep water loss and carbon consumption low during the drought, and they can resprout after the drought. But anyway, so this means the trees are kind of stable under this drought, and the shrubs they're not resistant, but they are resilient. They can come back. And another thing is we look at the physiology. So this is the hydraulic safety margin. So what is hydraulic safety margin? It's like the water potential they are operating, like how far away they are from the 50% loss of conductivity or 50% embolism level. So based on the 2012 paper, it shows that most trees they are on the brink of hydraulic failure. But based on our data, because we are now using more advanced technique, so the data are more reliable. It means for a lot of trees and shrubs and lianas, these hydraulic safety margin are actually very high for some of them. We have negative values. Negative values means during the drought, more than 50% of the conduits will be cavitated, and they maybe die. But actually, for most of trees, they are actually kind of resistant, or these trees could be kind of stable, even during this kind of historical drought. And this is the other thing is 88% of the conduits in the xylem are cavitated. Usually people think after 88% of the conduits are cavitated, the tree cannot recover. But this hydraulic safety margin in terms or close to this 88% loss of conductivity is also very high. They have a high safety margin. They are operating kind of very safe. Okay, so the general idea regarding this is like, actually this savanna system is quite stable, but we know maybe in the future we will have worse drought, so we don't know. But at least like based on history, we can see that the savanna system in Asia, in this region, is kind of stable, and different, of course, different type of trees, like trees and shrubs, they have different strategies to cope with this extreme drought. Now let's look at the second kind of case study. Is about looking about the subtropical forests in Asia. So the first question is like, we usually talk about tropics. We are interested in go to the tropical islands and Amazon region for vacation, and also maybe to carry out some scientific research. So where are the subtropics? Subtropics is not as famous as tropics, but there are also a lot of subtropical forests. For example, in Asia, like in China, in the southern China, we have a lot of subtropical forest. We also have some subtropical forest in Florida or the region, but because of hurricanes, there's no like really tall forests in Florida. And also in Argentina, there's some subtropical forests. And yeah, I wrote a review paper some years ago to show that actually the subtropical forests they are really kind of interesting system, because they are the huge carbon sinks. They are the largest carbon sinks on Earth. Because like the tropics, they have high productivity, but because of high temperature, they also do a lot of respiration. So the carbons are kind of accumulated, but also lost. But in subtropics, they have high productivity, but they have low respiration. So that's the general idea about the review I wrote. And now let's look at the drought. That's the same thing, the drought index, SPI. And this is just a one site in the primary forest in subtropical China. And when we look at these figures, again, those like negative values means more drought. So we can see that in 2010, there was a huge drought, but also maybe 2012. So this forest is like the same region as the savanna system. So it's kind of similar. And also 2020 is kind of the worst drought. The values approach -3. So this is a 6 months average. It's not just like 1 month drought. And also the 2010 drought it's not only because it's really bad, but also it span a larger region. It's like almost like expanding the whole southwest China, and it caused a lot of attention during that time, because even the drinking water became a huge problem during that time, especially those like villages. And some people in the village, they have to travel a long distance even to get drinking water. And it's not a big news in China, but also internationally, because it highlights the threat brought by climate change. And the same year, there was a huge drought in Amazon, mainly related to El Nino. But based on the previous figure, we can see that in Southwest China, actually the 2020 is like even worse compared to the 2010 drought. But it didn't catch too much attention because, as you know, like 2020, the biggest thing is the pandemic. So all the media, they just cover more news related to pandemic rather than this drought. So during that time, during the first like 2010 drought, I was in this subtropical forest doing study, and then the drought comes. So we want to study, when I was there, I want to see like how this huge drought is impacting the subtropical forest in this region. So I used my equipment and also based on the long-term monitoring, try to analyze how this drought is impacting the forest. But interestingly, like we didn't find any big impact on the forest. We didn't see any reduction in leaf area or leaf water status. Like this is just a midday water potential. It means like compared to, for example, compared to previous year, the 2010 drought is like, it's not the plants are fine. It's not showing like more water deficit compared to previous year. And we measure a lot of things like photosynthesis and tree growth, and we didn't see declines. And we think you know, during that time we thought it could be just this forest is very spatial, like these primary forests are very spatial. So we use the remote sensing to study like 10 forests in this region, and we found the same kind of pattern. This is just like ecosystem level monitoring using this 80 flux tower to monitor the ecosystem carbon uptake. And the 2010 is the drought year, and this is the driest period during the drought. And we compared this with the previous year, and we see some reductions because the atmosphere is drier, but we didn't see huge impact. And also, even during this huge drought, the forests, they are still uptaking CO2. It means they are still carbon sink. And use remote sensing data, we studied like 10 forests in this region, and we compared. So we compared it to like regular years, the long-term average. The green is the long-term average, and the orange is like during the drought year. And this drought lasts more than half a year from like start from in September, and in April, there's no rain. No rain happened in this half a year in this forest. But we can see that, so this is the satellite-based vegetation index. It just shows the greenness of the forest. So when we look at these 10 subtropical forests, we can see like at the beginning of the drought, the NDVI is even higher compared to regular years. It could be because, we don't know why, but it could be because like at the beginning of the drought, there's less rain, but there's higher solar radiation, more solar energy. So maybe at least at the beginning, the forests are happy. They could get more solar radiation. But even compared to later stage of the drought, there's no difference compared to regular years. So this kind of, you know, stable subtropical forest is not only true in one specific point. It's true for all the forests, all the primary forests here in this region, in China and also nearby regions. And we can see like the orange dots, they are kind of lower compared to the regular years after the drought. But that is mainly because right after the drought is a huge flood. There are a lot of rain. So we think, you know, maybe it's legacy effect of the drought, but we think we more think this is because of the huge rain and decreased solar radiation. But anyway, at least during the drought, these forests are quite stable. Yeah, so the message so far is like the savanna system and also the subtropical forests in Asia, they are kind of stable under these extreme drought events. So now let's look at the third case study is on the white blueberries in Maine, and it's really a unique and a really beautiful system. It's got cultural, you know, heritage, and this first figure shows first photo shows the summer region. You can see the berries on the ground, and also they have different colors. These show a really high diversity in terms of like leaf colors, berry size, berry color, and berry density. So it's actually a natural system. The growers go to the field to manage the field, like clear the shrubs, other shrubs, and also other trees. But the plants, the white blueberry plants, they are naturally growing there in the field. This is during the fall time. It's also a really beautiful system, even during the fall. We know in New England region, we love the foliage, but if you missed the foliage, you can also go to the blueberry fields to enjoy those like red carpets. Very beautiful. So we analyzed the climate change pattern of those white blueberry fields using GIS tools and those data sources from those like database. And we can see the average temperature change compared. So the black one is just a temperature change in Maine, and the brown one is the white blueberry fields. We use GIS tools to pick those fields, and the general idea is they are kind of warming faster compared to the entire state of Maine. The reason could be they are more close to the coast. We also detected that those blueberry fields more closer to the coast, they are warming faster compared to those like more inland ones. But anyway, yeah, there could be different reasons, but we can analyze more. And we also analyze the drought patterns for these white blueberry fields. Like these fields in Maine, but we also picked two specific fields. We know the history of management, and we have the yield data, detailed yield data. So this is the drought pattern for the white blueberry fields in the past 7 years. Again, this is the same drought index. And the left figure shows like all the fields in Maine combined. And the right one shows the like two specific fields. We know the history. We have all the records, but the pattern is similar. We can see like 2020, there's a huge drought because the growers were complaining like their yield is much damaged during 2020. But compared to the history, actually we can see like there's a little bit, maybe there's a little bit increase, but in terms of drought, but it's not statistically significant. And also in the history, we actually have a lot of drought events. All we can see that drought is frequent in white blueberry fields. And this is a work of my graduate students, and we are using greenhouse study to study the like drought response of white blueberries. I'm not going to show too much details, but the general messages here, like the above ground part, those shrubs, they are very sensitive to drought. They will close their stomata quickly. They will drop leaves quickly, and the above ground will die quickly during the drought. But they can respond. So the general message is like this system is sensitive, but they are very resilient. So like here, the figure actually shows like comparing to, you know, the high bush blueberries, those much taller blueberries compared to like our low bush, two populations. About like 50% to 80% of the individuals we studied in this greenhouse experiment, they can respond and come back. So this is a potted experiment, but we know in the field, they have a much larger underground or below ground biomass. So this responding rate would be much higher in the field because we are limiting them in the pots. But you know, the system is kind of resilient to drought, but the growers only cared about the yield. So we analyzed the yield for entire Maine, but also analyze the specific field. And what we can see is like actually the yield are quite sensitive to water conditions. So we found this positive relationship between yield and this drought index. So more negative means more drought. And very interestingly, the relationship is kind of weak if we just compare like 1 year water condition. But if we, compare the yield with the water condition in the previous years, for example, the 2 years average, 3 years average, and 4 years average, we actually see that they have more explanation power. It means like the water condition is really important to secure yield. And it's not only the current year water condition, it's also the situation in the past 4 years. I think the reason is because they have a lot of below ground, biomass, so they are accumulated sugar. But if you have a good, water condition in the past 4 years, they can accumulate more sugar below ground, and in the production year, they can be used for berry and leaf production. And this kind of not high resistance, but also a resilience to drought can also kind of apply to the forests. But the forest is not showing resilience, but they are showing high resistance. So this is based on a paper published by the Highland Forest group. And you can see that the NEP data is like net ecosystem productivity. It's kind of fluctuating over the years, but it's quite stable. It didn't really change too much. And there's a slight increasing trend, maybe because of warming. The trees, get more time to accumulate carbon. And the next figure is showing like both the general production and the respiration, they are decreasing. We need to analyze more, but the net ecosystem carbon gain or productivity is kind of increased. So the idea of their paper is like, this forest is really resistant to climate change, or they call it external drivers, like these fluctuations in temperature conditions. But anyway, it seems like the system here in this region could be either resistant or resilient to climate extremes. And this piece of studies, we are also using those like open top chambers to study how the blueberries are responding to warming. Some general results. And we're using those open top chambers, and during the winter time, they are covered with snow. And if you go to a field, you really think this is a kind of another planet. And the growers also call our open top chambers like spaceships, kind of interesting. And this, we have two types of open top chambers. The one close to us is like passive. They just use the greenhouse effects of those chambers. It can increase temperature 3 to 5 degrees. And we're also using those like the one further, like heating tapes. It can increase the temperature 7 to 9 Fahrenheit degrees, or 3 to 6 Celsius. So some important results is like, the first thing is like, because of warming, the plants, they are getting drier. The soil is also getting drier. And this is just the water potential data. More negative means more lack of water. So the active warming actually decreased like the water potential. So they are more stressed, but it's not huge stress. And very interestingly, like based on 1 year's data, we only have 1 year's data, but we are also repeating this year. The yield actually increased a lot under warming treatment. It's if you look at this figure, you can see that the yield could be like 3 or 4 times higher compared to the control. Control is just ambient. So we need more studies to show like what's the reason why the yield increased a lot despite more drought effects. And the one reason could be because like actually the warming decreased the soil and the leaf like water content. So the system is becoming drier. So the disease infection also become lower. So we studied like different leaf spot disease, and what we can see is like if we look at the red bars, like they are kind of lower, the active warming lower compared to the control. So this could be a kind of positive effects related to warming and decreased water content in the system. So this is just a slide I usually show to growers about like the impacts of warming on the wide group system. The good news is like the plants kind of extended their growing season, and also dry soil and atmosphere may lead to less disease infection. But the bad news is like we found less water and nutrient availability, and also we found more like insect pest activity. And one of my PhD students now studying like, the yield increased, but whether the berry nutrition values, the decreased or increased or unchanged. And also the soil health, the microbial communities, whether they are changing. Okay, so that's kind of a 3 case study about climate change and response of different systems. And the last thing is kind of bonus is like some ideas we are thinking. Like, the plants, those ecosystems, they are experiencing those kind of climate change or climate extremes. But actually to plants, the environment is changing a lot in the temporal scale of minutes or seconds. So this is a monitoring of leaf temperature of a tropical canopy tree. We use this canopy crane to study those canopy leaves, and the green dots is like leaf temperature per minute, and we can see it fluctuates a lot. And we can also see that actually the maximum temperature can reach like 42 degrees sometimes. That's because like the leaf, the stomata cannot regulate that efficient. Sometimes, a strong wind comes, they will lose water quickly, or when the sun comes out from the cloud, the temperature can really increase a lot, and the plant needs time to respond. And these kind of transient extremes cannot be captured by hourly means, the average values. So I'm very interested in those like plant response to these transient extremes, because these like 42 degrees could cause damage to the plants. And because of the huge temperature increase, the water loss will also increase a lot. So this is a manipulate, experiment. We just increase the leaf temperature by a heat gun or hair dryer, and increase the temperature. But because of the temperature increase, the driving force for the water loss is increased a lot. So the transpiration measured is also increased a lot. It means like the leaf will suddenly lose a lot of water, and this will cause like high tension in the xylem conduits or transient water damage or water stress. And the interesting thing is like during this process, we found this conduit collapse. If you look at, so this is a vascular bundle. In the middle, you can see those conduits, like you can see the cell walls of those conduits, and you can see the conduit collapse. So anyway, I will show a model to say, but some background regarding those conduits. So this is a leaf vein system of a red oak, a popular tree here, and also in Massachusetts. I did this in Massachusetts, this red oak. And we can see those, this is the irrigation system of a leaf, and we can see those like vein systems. And this is a enlarged view of those like vein system. So they are transporting water. So this is like those like terminal veins. We found this collapse in these terminal veins. And this is a image. We are using cryo SEM, a scanning electron microscope, but under very low temperatures. So the shape won't change. And we can see a kind of, a very round xylem conduit. So this is a perfect conduit, but the others, they are collapsed. So it means like during this time kind of transient damage to the leaf, the leaves, this is a vesicular bundle. And we can see like they try to collapse their minor veins or those terminal veins, maybe to prevent further water loss. And this kind of terminal vein collapse can be found in a lot of species, and also in the including some crop species. We also find this in the canopy tree species in the Southeast Asia. Like in the middle, you can see the collapse, but surroundings there are like some perfect veins. Circle. This one is like collapsed. Okay, so what does this mean? Like this is a kind of hypothesis based on our model, and we are designing experiment to do more research. But anyway, the idea is like in the water transport system, if we introduce this kind of collapse, we think like it can protect the leaves from cavitation, because cavitation cannot be easily refilled. So like there are kind of two models. The first one is like without collapse, and the second one is with collapse. And we can see that if without this collapse, the cavitation can happen very quickly if you expose a leaf to a transient increase in transpiration. So this is kind of model simulation. But if you introduce this vein collapse, which is the blue line, this is based on experimental data, but we put into the model, and we can see the cavitation, which is the red line, can be kept in a minor percentage. So anyway, our idea is like this, plants, they are exposed to these high fluctuations of environmental conditions or climate extremes, but they have these mechanisms to protect them from damages and from cavitations. Okay, so some general kind of conclusion regarding my today's talk is like maybe those like tropical savannas and also some Asian tropical forests, and also the Northeast forests here, they're kind of relatively stable system under climate change or climate extremes. And also the white blueberry system is relatively stable because they are sensitive to drought, but they are very resilient. But of course, we know that to growers, yield is sensitive. So we still need to mitigate those drought effects. So in terms of ecosystem, like we also try to understand what's the limit of those ecosystems. Like, can we really push them to the brink of collapse? Maybe we need more studies and to understand this. And in terms of leaf tissue response, we find that this kind of xylem collapse in those terminal veins, they could be functioning as a hydraulic valve. They can protect the hydraulic system when they are responding to climate transient extremes or fluctuations. And also, we can also really think about like from these ecosystems, the savanna, subtropical forest, or white blueberry system, like what we can learn from these natural or semi-natural systems, like how we can keep the system really stable under climate change. Yeah, at the end, I just would like to thank the funding agencies, including UMaine, and we have a huge blueberry team, and also a lot of students in my lab and also collaborators. And also thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to interacting with you more. Okay. That's it.
Thank you very much, John. That was wonderful, and some very beautiful pictures too from China and Maine. So I have a question, but let's see if anybody else has a question right now first. Just looks like Jacqueline does. She raised her hand.
No, I think I clapped.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I
have to leave at 1 for another meeting, so I'll let someone else ask a question.
I'll start with my question. I know that it's not easy to project, and that we have a lot of instability in the climate system. And of course, with the warming of Gulf of Maine, it's going to change precipitation, in particular, very close to the coast. Wild blueberries in Maine obviously are localized to various parts of the Northeast. What is it, at what point will wild blueberries no longer be able to thrive in Maine? How much higher temperature, how much more drought? Any idea?
Oh yeah, that's a really interesting question, and I think we need to study more. Maybe with collaboration of like you guys, or regarding the future, climate change scenarios, like how can we push them to the limit? But our current understanding is like, based on our experiment, is like they are actually quite stable. The system is quite stable. I mean, the yield is not, but the system is quite stable. Like climate warming may even increase the yield a lot. But I agree, like we can do some model simulations in terms of future climate change scenarios and try to figure out, or we can push them more with drought experiments.
But I know very little about plants. How far south are wild blueberries in North America?
So the species can be found in like Michigan, or in maybe further south, but this commercialized kind of production is only happen in Maine and Canada.
Really?
Yeah, and also in Portland region, they have a few farms, wild blueberry farms.
And one more quick question. I know the high and low bush blueberries look different.
Right.
Why are there high bush in some places and low bush in others?
Okay, yeah. So high bush is more productive. They are kind of cultivated. There are a lot of breeding programs on that. So people selected specific varieties. They are very productive. But the wild blueberry systems is kind of like cultural heritage. It's from those like tribal people in this region. They are the major growers even nowadays. So people kind of managing the system this way, rather than trying to breed more productive varieties. Yeah. But in terms of drought, I think that's why they are very stable, because you have a high diversity in the system. Maybe some plants will die, but some plants, they will survive.
Thank you. So John's hand, Peter, sorry, Peter?
Yeah, good. Thank you, John, for the talk. I really enjoy seeing the mechanics of these processes. It strikes me in the last talk where you were, or last bit, where you're looking at vein collapse, that should also change the stress state. It should be quite a dynamic system. That is, if you, but you were looking at a fairly static way of looking at it. Does the vein collapse increase the stresses and perhaps encourage cavitation? Or in other words, do they self-balance that?
Oh, okay, yeah. So, I mean, based on our model and the new studies, we think like they help the plants to avoid cavitation. So it's kind of like, we know stomata is protecting plants, but stomata is not efficient in transient changes. Yeah.
Do you see the differential stress go up as a functioning of vein collapse or not? Does that not occur?
Oh, can you say it again?
Does the differential stress go up as you start to reduce the number of pathways by vein collapse?
You mean the stress level between the vein?
Yeah, I can follow this up later, but it's just the dynamics. Yeah, good.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, well, it looks as if we're losing people. It's 1 o'clock. Thank you so much, John. That was a wonderful presentation. Thanks to everybody for joining. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you.